Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my end of semester statistics poster presentation and to my francophone viewers, bon arrivé. My name is Henry Owusu, pursuing a degree in Management Information Systems at Association University, and I'll be presenting on the role of education in impacting the standard living conditions of Ghanaians. During my research, I realized that the level of education is one of the basic determinants of the quality of human capital. Therefore, it affects the economic development on a macro scale. The level of education of the individual determines people's professional abilities as well as determine the social position, builds self-esteem, and shapes their lifestyle. Again, education and work of educated people are essential factors of economic development. It is desirable that the society has an implemented system of valuation for educated people by means of financial rewards. Also, it is argued that the economics of happiness poses a serious challenge to the currently prevailing link between education and economics that focuses on enhancing productivity, accelerating economic growth, and increasing income. Following the preliminary research I did, my research question was, what role does the level of education play in Ghanaians' perception of their living condition? Now, the association I tested is there an association between the level of education of Ghanaians and their perception of their living condition? Now, I use the statistical analysis software R&R Studio to look further into the research question and analysis. The sample for this test was a random sample of 2,400 Ghanaian respondents who took part in the round 7 Afrobarometer survey in 2020. My focus variables were the education of respondents, living conditions of respondents, and gender as a moderating variable. The living condition was measured by the question, in general, how would you describe your own present living condition? Response categories included very bad, fairly bad, neither good nor bad, fairly good, and very good. The responses were then collapsed into 3 levels: bad, neither good nor bad, and good. The level of education was measured by the question, what is your highest level of education? The response categories were then collapsed into no formal, basic and secondary, and tertiary. The chi-square test for independence was used for my inferential test, since both my explanatory and response variables were categorical. My null hypothesis was that there is no association between the level of education of Ghanaians and the perception of their living conditions, making them independent. My alternate hypothesis was that there is an association between the level of education of Ghanaians and the perception of their living conditions. That is, they are not independent. My results revealed an obvious fact and an interesting trend. The results portray that people with no formal education have the worst living conditions among the three, whilst those with basic and secondary education have a high percentage of bad living conditions, yet they are better off than those with no formal education. However, those with tertiary education have the best living conditions and the smallest percentage of bad living conditions amongst the three. Finally, the percentage of neither good nor bad living conditions is fairly equal across board. Using Pearson's chi-squared test, the test statistics for this test is x squared is equal to 64.865, which tells us in a standardized way how far our observed data is from what's to be expected if the null hypothesis is true. This gives us the idea that there is a higher chance to reject the null hypothesis because the test statistics is large. Also, the degrees of freedom for this test is 4. This means that we have 4 numbers in our table of proportions that are actually independent. The p-value for this test is 2.74 times 10 raised to the power negative 13, which is essentially 0. With a significance level of 0.05, the data provided enough evidence to reject the claim that educational level and perception of living conditions are independent. Because the categories in my explanatory variable are 3, there is a need to conduct a post hoc test. The pairwise post hoc analysis revealed that all categories were significantly different. Looking further into my results, I moderated by gender. For my moderation, I realized that there are more males with formal education than females. Diving deeper, I realized that the proportion of males with tertiary education is twice the proportion of females with tertiary education. This means that there is still gender inequality in our educational system. As I come to a conclusion, education has been found to be a factor that may influence the living conditions of people, in that more people with higher educational levels perceive their living conditions to be better. There is still gender inequality in the educational sector. The ratio of educated men is higher than that of educated women. This, from my research and results, will lead to more men having relatively better standard living conditions. It is important that we encourage girl child education in order to give everyone the chance to improve their living conditions. Thank you, and hasta la vista.